Hello everyone and welcome to Purple Rose Crafts. Today we're going to create this lovely Moss Stitch Dishcloth. This is one that I created prior with some scrap yarn. Honestly, it was two small balls of this dark gray and then this pretty blue color. But we're actually going to use our Bernat Handicrafter cotton in the Anchors Away color. So it's this lovely teal, dark blue and gray with white. We're also going to use our 6mm crochet hook as well. And before we go further, I want to give you guys a little bit of a tip. If you can see this ball here, it actually has 340 grams in it. This is one of the variegated patterns, of course. But recently I picked up the ball of this light gray color. It's called soft gray, and if you can see the amount of yarn in this ball, it's 400 grams. So you're getting an extra 60 grams in the solid color than you are in the variegated, and it turns out they're both the same price. So tip for new cotton work people, you know, dishcloth makers and things like that, that you get extra yarn if you buy the solid colors versus the variegated ones. All right, so we're going to do this by creating our chain row. We're going to start with 30 chains, and then we're going to move into a very nice and simple pattern for our Moss Stitch. This is suitable for beginners and can be worked up very quickly. I usually work these up in just a few hours, so I can get usually one done in an evening. And you know, that means I actually give these as gifts for my kids' teachers for Christmas, and they tend to love them because they you know, they're useful and they're not another coffee mug, right? So I like to give them for the teachers, so I tend to make quite a few for each year at Christmas, and I really like using different patterns for all different types of cloth. So if you can see some of the other videos I've posted, I'll link them in the description below. I've posted a couple of knit videos for dishcloths already so far, but we're going to do some crochet ones as well now before we get close to Christmas as well. Okay, so first of all, we're going to do this moss stitch, and then we're going to move into some other styles as well. All right, so okay, so I'm actually using a little bit larger of a hook than I did for the original design. So it's actually going to be a few less stitches than I had planned. So we're going to do 21 stitches, and we are doing 21. So basically the stitch is going to be multiples of 2, and then we're going to add one extra stitch for the chain at the beginning of the row. So to go ahead and start our row, we're going to start with a single crochet on the second stitch from our hook. And then, so here we have the last chain from our chain row, and this one is our second. So our pattern is going to be single crochet chain 1, okay? And then we're going to skip a stitch and work into the next one. So we're going to work into the second one over again, and chain 1, skip, and then chain 1 again, skip our stitch, this one here, and then we're going to work into the next one. Oops, we're making a double crochet here, so I'll just unloop that. All right, so single crochet, chain 1, skip, work into the next one. All right, so nice and simple, and I'll come back in just a second for the second row, and to give you a good idea of how we work the second row on top of this first row on our foundation stitches. Okay, just a moment. All right, so here we are at the end of our row. So basically we have our last single crochet here and then one last stitch on the end. So we actually want to anchor our cloth with an extra single crochet on the end. So we're not going to chain 1 at the end of that one. So at the end, we're going to do 2 single crochets to finish off the row. We have a chain 1, and now we're going to actually chain a second. We've created our chain to be equivalent to the single crochet that we had at the end of the row. Now we're going to skip this first single crochet from the row previous, and we're going to create a second chain to create that stitch. Okay, so We have chained 2 at the beginning of the row. Normally with single crochets, we'd only chain 1, but we want this actually to go over so we can work into the space between the 2 single crochets in the previous row. So now we're gonna single crochet into the chain space from the row below, and so single crochet and chain 1. And now we're gonna skip over, come into the chain space again, and continue working in that fashion. So single crochet and chain 1. Okay, now skip over to the next chain space, single crochet and chain 1. And continue that like that across the row. All right, so here we are at the end of the row now, and we have done our single crochet chain all the way across. Now what we have left is a single crochet and our chain from the beginning of the first row. And so now we're gonna chain over top of the single crochet, skip it, and then put our single crochet in the end of the row to finish off our anchoring at the end of the row. Okay, so this row slightly different from the first row, but honestly very simple 2-row repeat. So we're going to do chain 1, and then we're going to turn our work around, and we're going to work that first row back into but continue working into the spaces. Okay, row 1 is the row after our chain row, and it is going to be a setup row. And then we have our row 2 and 3, which is going to be our repeats. Okay, so for now we start with the chain 1, single crochet into the space again, chain 1, and then skip over to the next chain space. And we're going to work the row the same way that we did row 2 with our single crochets and chains. But it's just the way that we set up the beginning of the row and end of the row that's going to be slightly different in row 2 and 3. Okay, so basically that's it for our pattern. I will come back here in just a moment once we've created our square. Ideally, I make most of my dishcloths about square. So what I generally do is towards the end of my pattern, I'll put this aside for a second. So what happens is the end of the pattern, to find out whether or not I'm pretty close to square, I'll fold my cloth over and see you know, how close to square I am. And that's pretty darn close if you ask me. So you know, basically that's what I'm looking for as far as dishcloth. So from this point, we're going to finish off our cloth. Now, if you were changing colors like I did in this example one with the 3 sections of dark gray, what I did is I added the border so you can't see me carrying up the colors along the side of the cloth. So it really does kind of give it that, you know, illusion, but it also saves me from having too many ends to weave in. Okay, so this one, of course, completely reversible, such a lovely design, and you can really see how the colors change in this pretty moss stitch. All right, so in order to create our moss stitch, we're going to actually do a little bit of a different foundation row here to kind of give us that foundation row that we're looking for in that cloth. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with 2 chains on our hook. So we started with a slip knot, 2 chains. Just for your reference, we're using our 4.5mm crochet hook here and our Bernat Handicrafter cotton yarn, and this color is actually called Psychedelic. So in the previous section, I showed you using the Anchors Away color, but I decided after I shot that video to change the way that I did my foundation row. Or now we're going to include a little bit different way to do that foundation row. In order to get us our setup row, we're going to do it a little bit differently. All right, so I wanted to show an alternate way to do the chain row. So we're starting with chain 3. Basically what we're doing here is going to be our chain for the bottom of our single crochet, another chain for the single crochet, and then a chain for the chain, because our pattern is single crochet, chain 1. So we're starting with 3 chains. Now, in order to create our foundation row, we're going to create another chain, but we're going to actually do it from the bottom of the stitches. So in this case, we're going to go back to the very first chain, insert our hook, chain 1, okay, and then now we're going to do a foundation single crochet. So if you've seen the video that I talked about the foundation single crochet, it was in one of the Granny Square videos. I will link that in the description below as well. But to do a foundation single crochet, we're going to do yet another chain one here in the bottom of the stitch, and then we're going to do a single crochet from that chain. So now we're going to loop up again. Now we have 2 on our hook still, and then we're going to finish off with our single crochet. So basically what we've done is we've created a chain between our stitches, then a chain as the foundation for our single crochet, then we finished our single crochet. And we also created the chain at the top of the stitch as well. Okay, so basically we're making a little bit of a circle here, which is basically doing the chain row and the single crochet chain 1 row all at once. Okay, so this gives us a little bit better way to judge the size of our cloth. So now we're going to chain 1 for the top of the single crochet, and then we're going to insert our hook back down into the what is the chain stitch and draw up our second chain, and then we're going to draw up 1 more. So we're going to chain 2 at the bottom, 1 at the top, and then we're going to finish off as our single crochet. All right, so now we chain 1 for the top of the stitch, and then we're going to come back down into the bottom of the stitch. Wait, that's not right. 1 second. All right, so just going back. All right, so we chain 1 at the top of our stitch for the end of our single crochet chain. And now we're going to chain 2 at the bottom. So 1 and 2. And now we're going to do a third. So that's giving us the chain between the stitches, the chain for the bottom of the single crochet, and then now we can finish off our single crochet. Okay, so this one is a little bit more confusing than just a straight single crochet foundation row, but give this a try. It actually works out really well once you actually get into the body of the cloth. Okay, so once again, we're gonna single crochet at the top of the stitch where we just finished off our single crochet. And now we're going to come back down and insert our hook into the bottom of the stitch, which is a little bit hard to see, but it is back here. So there's our single crochet right here. Where are we here? Okay, so here's our single crochet. So we want to actually put this into the base of it, which is this stitch here. So we're going to insert our hook into this one, yarn over, draw up 1, 2, so that's our chain stitch between our stitches, and then now we're going to make our foundation single crochet. So chain 1 again, and then finish off our single crochet. All right, so now this time, this kind of like greenish turning one here is our foundation chain, and then this part is our single crochet. Okay, so chain 1 for the top of the stitch, and then we're going to come back down into this spot here. All right, so this one that's starting to turn green, this is our chain of the stitch. So we're going to insert our hook here, yarn over. Now we're going to do a chain twice. There's 1 and 2, and then draw through both loops on the hook to give us our single crochet. All right, so chain 1 for the top of the stitch, and then down here into this green is the base of our single crochet, so we can see our single crochets here. Okay, so we're going to come back into the base of it, which is this spot here, insert our hook. Okay, so we have 1 chain, 2 chain, that's our chain for the space between the stitches, and then we have chain for the base of the single crochet, and then finish off our single crochet. All right. All right, so again, chain 1 at the top of the stitch, then we're going to come back. Okay, so here's our single crochet stitch. Now we're going to come back into the base of it, which is this part here. We're going to insert our hook. All right, we're going to chain 1, 2, so that's just our chain between the stitches. This will be the base of our single crochet, and then we draw up to finish off the single crochet. All right, so what's happening here is we're creating our foundation row of chains here at the bottom and our single crochet chain 1 that gives us the base of our moss stitch. Okay, so Let's do this a few more times because we're going to make this into a dishcloth. And I'll be right back and we'll start our second row. All right, so we finished our row here with our chain 1 at the end of the row. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually turn our row around, and now we're going to work our single crochets into the chain spaces from the row below, okay? All right. So now we have our chain 1 here, so now we're going to work into the chain space for the row previous. So there's our single crochet and then chain 1, and then we're going to skip over to the next one. So the next chain 1 space, and then single crochet there and chain 1. So that's our pattern as we work back along. So how do we know we're finished our cloth? It's basically going to be square. Okay, so give it that fold corner to corner diagonally, and when everything basically matches up, you're going to want the folded corner to be basically one right on top of the other, and make everything nice and square. And we're just out a little bit, so I could block this and it would actually probably turn out perfect, but I'm not overly concerned about it at this point. Okay, so we're looking for basically it to be being able to be folded diagonally in half, and we lose the one on the bottom from the one on the top. Okay, if you make it, or if you like your cloth to be a little bit more rectangular, that's fine too. You might opt to stop crocheting a little bit shorter to make it that nice diagonal, or that nice rectangle that you like, or crochet it a little bit longer. It's completely up to you. Okay, so now that you know how to do the moss stitch with that, just that simple, you know, setup row. As I said, it's a 2-stitch repeat, so you can choose how many stitches you want to put on, and then add one at the end of the row to go ahead and for our turning single crochet. Okay, so I'll include the pattern below as well. Thank you for joining us with Purple Rose Crafts. If you like what we did today, click the like button below, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell so you'll be notified of future videos. Also, in the comment section below, tell me what more you'd like to see on the channel.